Okay. Let me know if you can see my screen kindly.
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry for that delay. So good afternoon once more. My name is Clarice, and I work at Amref Health Africa as a health system strengthening advisor. And this afternoon, I'll be sharing with you something about oxygen supply chain and the role pharmacists have to play in this supply chain. So this is the outline of my presentation. We'll look at introduction, where the problem is, what are the sources of oxygen, what can pharmacists do, and we'll look at an order management system that we have developed, and then I'll conclude and make recommendations. Yeah, so a bit of pharmacology. Oxygen is actually a drug, just to remind us, and in every sense of the word, because it has biochemical and physiological actions. It has a specific range of doses and also well-defined adverse effects at high doses. So I'm just saying that to remind us that as experts in drugs and custodian of drugs, oxygen is in our custody. So in our hospitals, we use oxygen to treat hypoxemia. And normally it's used during surgery, during acute respiratory illnesses, such as pneumonia and we all know COVID, other chronic pulmonary diseases like COPD and cardiovascular diseases. So the consumption of oxygen increased exponentially during the peak of COVID-19 pandemic. And during this period, Amref Health Africa received funding from Global Fund and a mechanism called COVID-19 Response Mechanism, which we normally call C119RM. And this funding was supposed to support the government in ensuring that oxygen was available in our facilities to help manage the ever-increasing number of COVID-19 patients who needed oxygen for their management. And Amref is supporting provision of oxygen in different modes. One, we are supporting provision of oxygen in oxygen cylinders, which I'm sure we are all familiar with. We're also supporting provision of oxygen in manifolds. Manifolds are cylinders that are grouped together. Also supporting installation of oxygen plants and also installation of liquid oxygen tanks. We'll look at them later. So here is the problem. Historically, oxygen was not seen as a drug, and it wasn't even in the essential medicines list. Right now it is there, but before it wasn't there. And if you go to most of our facilities, the procurement or budget line was falling under fuel, and this was managed by the administrators and the biomedical engineers and procurement staff. So as I've said, COVID brought oxygen to the fore for its important role in management of COVID-19. And WHO in 2017 classified oxygen as an essential medical commodity and also revised the monograph just last year in the International Pharmacopoeia and described oxygen in details as a drug. So these are the sources of oxygen. I have mentioned we have cylinders in different sizes. We have the ones that are stationary at the facilities. Then we have oxygen cylinders that are portable and used in ambulances. And even concentrators, some are small and can be used in homes. And we saw at the peak of COVID, people who could afford concentrators were actually buying them and stocking them in homes because very few facilities had availability of high dependence unit and ICU beds to admit really ill patients with COVID. Then we have oxygen plants that supply high pressure oxygen in big facilities and can even be used to refill cylinders. And then finally we have liquid oxygen tanks of different sizes, and these are refilled by the oxygen suppliers. So in our hospitals, those who are in hospital setups, you've seen these, the bed heads. Now this is where the piping is connected to, and the regulators are there, and now oxygen is available to be delivered to the patient. So what is the role of the pharmacist? So before we get to the role of the pharmacist, we need to look at what has been happening in the supply chain of oxygen, even currently happening as we speak, that oxygen is being managed by mostly biomedical engineers, procurement officers, nurses, and even other cadres and administrators. And there are gaps existing in this kind of setup, which we are trying to address, even as we come in with the support from Global Fund. And we want to leverage on the vast experience of pharmacists in commodity management so that we ensure that demand for oxygen does not outstrip supply and we end up with stockouts. So pharmacists have a role in ensuring, in ordering and in supply and return of cylinders. I don't know those of us who work in hospitals if we are ever involved in these processes. Yeah, slowly some pharmacists are coming on board in ensuring that orders are made and cylinders are returned to from departments, that is empty cylinders, to the central place where they can now be taken for refill. Sometimes pharmacists will be called upon to do a mapping exercise for cylinder ordering and intra-site movement and return to the suppliers I've mentioned, because suppliers might want to come at a certain time and they want to find cylinders already collected and numbered so that they pick and go in refill. So this process needs to be efficient so that we don't have bottlenecks that can lead to stockouts. And since pharmacists have been involved in commodity management of other pharmaceutical and non-pharmaceutical commodities, we know that they are better placed to even support this kind of commodity management for oxygen. We also require, it's also recommended that pharmacists can be of help in checking on expired and empty cylinders. Cylinders also expire, and if they're expired, this can be a health hazard because they are containing highly inflammable product. So just the way we check on expiry drugs, we have expiry tracking charts in our stores. Cylinders also need to be monitored to check if they've reached the expiry date and they need to be disposed. And also ensuring that we have efficient cylinder turnaround is a good practice in working conditions. Yeah, as I've said, just as with other medicines, the clinical area should only hold the number and size of cylinders absolutely necessary to avoid hoarding and making other departments miss out on stocks. And we know that we do that in with other medicines and even non-pharmaceutical products. So cylinders can also form part of this work that we do and ensure that some departments are not hoarding and causing disruption in supply to other departments. Quality control is another area that pharmacists can come in and support to ensure that the pipeline is not contaminated. Of course, they need to do this with the biomedical engineers, just to reinforce the importance of ensuring that the oxygen being delivered to patients is of good quality and that the systems are robust. So just to summarize the roles of pharmacists, is that we have a role in ensuring that the quality of oxygen supplied to the patient is of good quality. We have a role in managing the orders of oxygen and intra-facility movement, and also a role in rational use of oxygen. Just to know that patients are getting the right dose based on their SpO2s, and also the ensuring the safety of oxygen and knowing that it's highly combustible, of course, in conjunction with the biomedical engineers and other cadres. So I'll quickly move on to the oxygen order management system. This is a web-based system that we were supported by Clinton Health Access Initiative to develop. Since we were starting supporting facilities with oxygen in different modes, we thought it's important that we have documentation of this kind of supply because at the facility level, we realize that there's no documentation of how much oxygen has been received, how much has been used, how much is remaining, average monthly consumption of oxygen. This kind of data is still lacking. Just at this, even at the store level, we can't even go to patient level at this moment because that one is not available at the moment. If you check in the patient files, they'll just state the patient is on this number of liters per minute, but you cannot tell how many liters has a patient consumed maybe in a day or in a week. So we've not yet gone to patient level. We are still collecting. This system collects data at a facility level. So it's being used by facilities that are being supported. We are supporting 300 facilities across the country, except in Nairobi County, which is being supported by other partners. And we are supporting them to receive, as I've mentioned, oxygen in different forms. But for this order management system, it will be dealing with liquid oxygen, the one being delivered to liquid oxygen tanks, and oxygen in cylinders, compressed oxygen, the oxygen that is compressed at standard pressure and temperature. So this is how the system looks like. That's the link to the system. And the facility focal person that are supposed to order oxygen receive credentials from AMREF team, and they are able to order for their facility. So they select their facility and make their orders in this system for that particular reporting month. And they need to make their orders by 10. And I'm sure those of us who've worked at the county, we know that we always do this reports and orders, the FCDRs for various commodities. So this is a similar reporting system that will help monitor the supply of oxygen to the counties. So we have the various sizes of cylinders and the various columns. We have opening balance, quantity received, then consumed, adjustment, closing balance, and finally quantity received. And this is approved by the county because the county has to have oversight of what the facilities are ordering. And finally, it's sent to us and we approve. Because different facilities are allocated different sizes of cylinders based on their size and workload, we have to confirm that what they've ordered is what they've actually been allocated for support. So you can see these are some of the facilities that have made orders and the county hasn't approved yet. Once the county approved, then AMREF is able to approve. And this one is already approved. After approval, the order can be downloaded, the FCDRR, facility consumption data in report and request. And this is forwarded to the supplier. Our current supplier is BOC. So you forward it to the supplier and the supplier is able to deliver the gas as ordered. So the system can also show, it has a dashboard where one can get in and see how summary of stock status at the facilities based on what the facilities have reported. So for liquid oxygen, you can see what is available at the facilities. We have an 11.5 kg cylinder size, which is the most consumed cylinder size at the facilities, and the rest of the cylinder sizes. So this shows us how many months of stock. We've just started using this system. It's barely 2 months, so the data is not really concrete, but with time, it will be able to tell us, to show visibility of oxygen consumption, and some of this data can be used for decision making. You can also see a reporting rate in the system. As you can see, we started In January, December, we're doing trials and training, but you see in January, it peaked to close to 60%. That's when most of the facilities being supported were able to do reports and make their orders. So in conclusion, management of oxygen supply chain requires multidisciplinary approach. We need biomedical engineers, that is BMEs. We need pharmacists, we need nurses, clinicians, and even the anesthesia department. Because it is it's complex in nature, and we have a lot of infrastructure and also the product. Remember, as much as the infrastructure, the piping and all that belongs to the engineer, the contents of the pipe are a pharmacist's responsibility. So there is need of pharmacists to get involved in management of oxygen and utilize their experience in commodity management, because the principles are basically the same. So we need to have maybe medical gas committees at our facility that will follow up, ensure that the safe procurement, storage, prescribing, and even administration of oxygen. At the moment, the Ministry of Health, through the Department of Health Products and Technologies, is developing guidelines that will be able to actualize an end-to-end visibility of the supply chain of oxygen. And once these guidelines are out, it will give as a clear way forward on how to go about management of oxygen supply. Those are my references, and thank you very much for listening. Over.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Clarice Ambale, for that wonderful presentation you just made. There's a question for you from Dr. Sheila Nomondi. He's asking, while billing for oxygen, what is the best practice? Do you bill per cylinder, per hour, or at a rate?
Okay, billing, I wouldn't know, because that's at the facility level. What we are dealing with is bulk supply. So I think billing should be done per liter, how much has been consumed. Yeah, because patients get different doses. Some get 15 liters per minute, some 10. So you can't bill based on the time. I think you need to bill based on the amount consumed by the patient. Over.
Thank you, Dr. Then Dr. Chris Masili is asking, how is oxygen distributed across the country? Is there a hub and spoke model, or is there an opportunity for other medical oxygen partners beyond BOC?
Okay, of course, there's an opportunity for other partners, but as of now, because ours was a competitive process, it's BOC that got the contract to supply liquid oxygen and cryogenic oxygen in cylinders. And we don't have a hub and spoke model. We consider that, however, but the funding requires that delivery is done to the last mile. So the supplier has to deliver to the facility that is being supported. Over.
Well, thank you. Dr. Frederick Morandi in the QS section is asking, first he says it's good to learn that oxygen has been regarded as a medicine. In regards to the training which cadres did you train in placing of the order? What was entailed in the training protocol?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. And I'll be glad to share with you the video of the training. It's a very straightforward process of making the orders. We invited biomedical engineers because they've been dealing with that. And we also invited county pharmacists for the training. However, very few county pharmacists stand up for the training, and a few have taken up the role seriously. I'll mention Machakos County. They're taking their role seriously in managing oxygen, making their orders. Homa Bay, and I think, is it Laikipia or Nyandarua? I think Laikipia, yeah, or Samburu, sorry. So a few of them have taken it up, but since most missed out on the training, they are still clueless on what is happening, but we are not giving up. This is just a starting point. We are going to bring them on board, and we'll require the guidance of the HPT department headed by Dr. Menge to give leadership on this, so that we bring on board pharmacists to take lead in management of oxygen supply.